What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another video on Runeslayers, and today I'm going to be showing you guys the revamped and updated version of my previous video on the best mage build you could possibly get in this game currently. Now, I wanted to do this just because the previous video kind of missed out on a couple of points, just like races and passive abilities, plus with the recent update changes, just like the reputation and faction armors, the Armageddon getting a slight nerf, and even mages having their magic crit actually working now. I wanted to show the full potential of a mage as of right now. So without further ado, if you guys have any questions or you want to leave a comment, leave it down below. And while you are down there, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications because it's all free and it helps me out a ton. Now, with that out of the way, let's begin with the races that you want to aim for if you're trying to create this build. So I'm going to give you guys 3 different races. The first one that you want to get, or the first one you want to aim for, is going to be the rare 6% half golem race. So when you first join the game or you reroll with Robux, you could get this race right here. And the reason why I chose half golem as the primary race they want to aim for is because of the evolution. So once you reach level 25, you could pick between 3 evolutions. You have the assault body, the siege body, and then the crystal body. The one that you want to get is the crystal body. This gives you plus 12% magic power buff, plus 6% speed boost, minus 10% damage reduction, but you also get plus 25 robustness. So basically, you do more damage, you're faster, you take a little bit more damage, but you're also resistant to hemorrhaging or bleeding. So overall, one of the better races to have in the game. The second one that you could aim for is the 6% rare slime race. This race gives you immunity to poison, gives you a magic ability called Viscous Shock, although not a powerful one, could be decent early game. And then the evolutions, which include Black Ooze Slime, Predator Slime, and Sapphire Slime. The one that you want to pick up is the Sapphire Slime, because paired up with the Viscous Remains, the passive, basically when you get hit, they could drop slime blobs, which can restore your mana when absorbed. So this gives you really nice sustain with mana. And then if you want to aim for a common race and you're not really lucky with the other two, you could get the Elf race, 25.3% chance, and this gives you the passive Strider, 3% more speed, 10% cooldown reduction, and plus 10% stealth, and then the other passive Mana Affinity, plus 10% more mana. So honestly, one of the better common races in the game. You're able to consistently use spells with the 10% cooldown reduction, the 10% stealth ability allowing you to run through mobs without getting detected, and then 10% more mana, giving you more mana storage to use up spells. Now we can move on to the spells. So the spells that you want to aim for include the following: Flamethrower, Flame Pillar, Plague of Rats. If you don't have Plague of Rats, you could substitute that with Flame Slice or Magic Arrows. We also have Arcane Storm. If you don't have Arcane Storm, you could substitute that with Earth Wall or Tornado. For the abilities, there's Overload, Mana Shield, and then finally Greater Intelligence. So for most of these, you could just obtain them by talking to the wizard in the tower at Wayshire, paying him 20 silver. The only ones that you can't buy through gacha is Magic Arrows and Plague of Rats and Arcane Storm. Plague of Rats, you could buy that through the hobo in the sewers by paying him with the King Rat head by killing the King Rat. The Magic Arrows can be obtained by just leveling up as a magician. And then finally, the Arcane Storm, you can only get the Arcane Storm once if you're level 40 as a magician. So if you multi-class into something else, you might not get this. That's why I recommend other substitutes. Now let's run through what the abilities actually do. So for Flamethrower, if you hold it down, you'll shoot out a fireball. For Flame Pillar, wherever you have your mouse at, if you use this ability, it'll shoot up a giant pillar of flames, like the name says. For Plague of Rats, if you hold it down, you'll summon a horde of rats, dealing 12 to 19 damage for each rat, and they're invulnerable, by the way. So for the next 30 seconds, you basically have companions that'll do damage for you as long as you're near the mob. If you want to substitute that, the Flame Slice is just a long-ranged attack that goes through mobs and hits them twice, I believe, dealing fire damage. And then for Magic Arrows, all you really do is you shoot out arrows, dealing some damage. Now for the fourth ability, we have Arcane Storm. Wherever you aim your mouse at, when you press this attack, it'll shoot down a storm of arcane magic, dealing a ton of AoE damage in a circle. Really OP for world bosses, and overall just damage dealing in both PvP and PvE scenarios. If you don't have Arcane Storm, Earth Wall, one of the replacements, shoots out a wall in front of you, dealing damage while knocking them up in the air. And then for Tornado, you shoot out a gust of wind, making smaller mobs stuck in that area, allowing you to do damage over time while they can't move. I believe this doesn't work though on large mobs, but it still does damage. Now for the abilities, you'll just get this normally as you level up as a magician. For Overload, when you press the button, you'll get a 15-second buff, which gives you 50% increased magic power. So you just deal 1.5 times your normal damage. For Mana Shield, when you use this ability, you basically gain a shield around you, reducing the next 5 hits, allowing you to survive a lot longer. And then finally, Greater Intelligence. When you use this ability, it'll give you a 5-minute buff that increases your intelligence by 50, giving you more more damage and magic crit chance. Now let's move on to the subclass spells. So this is going to talk about both Warlock and Sorcerers. So for Warlocks, the first ability you'll have is Soul Steal. When a mob is low enough or a player is low enough, you'll execute them and steal their soul alongside with a bit of HP. And you want to have this because, well, you're going to need the souls to summon your demons. And speaking about the demons, the next ability you'll have in your hotbar is going to be Summon Fiend and Summon Imps. Summon Fiend is the strongest summon that you can create. It costs 75% of your souls, and when you summon it, a fiend shows up, just like its name. And these guys can run around, grab people, throw them around, drag them through the floor, roar, and even stun others, which is really overpowered for frontlining in both PvP and PvE. Now, if you want a more cost-efficient summon, you could use the Summon Imp. These guys aren't as tanky, but they deal a pretty good amount of damage. They could scratch your enemies, they could light their fist on fire, they could shoot fireballs, they could slam the ground. And then the last ability is Sacrifice. Pairing this up with the Demonic Sacrifice passive, you will gain a random 30-minute buff, which includes intellect buffs and HP buffs. As you can see, currently I have a 30-minute 10% intellect scaling damage buff, which is really overpowered. So a quick tip, if you want to just use this in every server that you join, summon a mob, sacrifice it, you get your souls back, but you also get the buff. And now for Sorcerers, the two abilities you'll be running around with is Arcane Explosion and Arcane Finale. They're very similar in how they work, but Arcane Finale is just your ultimate move. You shoot down this giant beam that explodes, dealing a ton of damage. And I forgot to mention, as a magician, you'll just naturally gain Conjure Food and Conjure Water as well. Conjure Food gives you food to eat if you're running low on hunger or if you're running low on your HP, and then Conjure Water gives you water to drink if you're running low on mana. And I forgot to mention, these are what my passive abilities actually look like. So my first one that I'm using is Meditation. Lets you regen mana while casting. This is going to be very useful for just trying to get as much mana back as quick as possible, because some spells do take a lot of mana from your storage. Like Arcane Storm is 150 mana drain. The next one is Arcane Armor. This is one of the most useful ones in the game, even though it's a common passive. If you take this off, as you can see, my normal armor is around 903, but now it went all the way down to 558. So I lost what, 350 armor, which is an insane amount, especially when we are really squishy as mages. I also have Spell Made. Upon taking a lethal hit, your mana will be depleted by 50% instead. So for example, if I fall down from a high place, or if I get hit down to like 0 HP, I'll then get a second wind, where instead of my HP being dropped down to however damage I took, my mana will just get depleted to 50%. So this is very overpowered for survivability. Plus it pushes everybody away and it does damage as well. So it's kind of nice in PvP. The next one is Mana Training 2. I believe this is the highest tier of Mana Training, and what Mana Training does is just regens your mana faster, and the higher tier it is, the faster it regens. I also have Mana Pool, increasing my mana storage by 10%, and then finally Demonic Sacrifice. We talked about this earlier, but basically when you pair this up with Sacrifice, it gives you a unique buff for the next 30 minutes. Now for the pets that you want to run around with, it's going to be between 3. The first one is the normal fairy. Let me quickly take it out of my storage. This guy right here, once he's max level, alongside with the Malleus Ring, which I'll talk about later on, it'll give you a 24% magic attack, which is a really good pet to run around with if you just want to do an insane amount of damage. Now the second pet is gonna be the Golden Fairy, although I believe it doesn't give you any buffs in terms of magic. If you have the Malleus Ring alongside it, it'll give it an extra roll on monster drops. So nearing max level, you'll have around 4 extra rolls on monster drops, giving you higher chances for loot drops. So it might not be the best for like PvP or PvE damage wise, but it is really good for collecting loot. And then finally, if you don't have the fairy or the Golden Fairy, you could just tame the spider, which could be obtained through the spider caves using Mandrake roots. And these guys have different attacks, like clinging onto enemies, shooting out spider webs that slow them, and even slashing at them with their legs. Plus, you can use it as a mount to ride around with if you're slow or you want some sort of mobility. And now we can move on to the armor set. So you want to have the faction hat, the faction robes, the faction capes, and then the arachnid pants. In order to get any of the faction items, you need to have a certain reputation in order to buy it with gold, and to get reputation, you got to kill the opposing factions. So for example, if you're a demon sect, you got to kill Holy Templars, and if you're a Holy Templar, you got to kill demon sects, and you turn in those reputations to the NPC to get rating points, which will then give you ranks. And a little side note, the Malefic and Sanctified armor pieces, they're basically the same thing. The only difference is the cosmetic, and you can mix and match even if you're in different factions. So for the faction hat, it'll cost you 5 gold. For the faction robes, it'll cost you 10 gold. For the faction cape, it'll cost you 5 gold. And then for the arachnid pants, you actually have to craft that with spider mother drops, normal spider drops, and then resources from hell. Now for your staff, you want to aim for the Armageddon. In order to get the Armageddon, you have to kill imps from hell, and this staff has insane insanely good stats alongside with a passive where if you do spell damage, the mob or person that you hit will then combust in hellfire every 6 seconds. And then finally, for your offhand, you want to aim for the Magician's Sash. You could get this through a quest at Lakeshire, and you can also craft it with the resources at Lakeshire, and it'll just give you intellect, spirit, and some stamina. Now with the armor pieces set in stone, let's talk about the rune slots and what runes to actually put on the armor pieces. So for the hat, you could have a total of 4 rune slots. The ones you want to put on it is Rune Golem rune, which you could get from the Rune Golem boss. Then you want to get the Stormcaller rune, which you could get from the Electrical Orbs by Stormpeak, and then 2 intellect or 2 spirit. Now the reason why I included spirit is because spirit actually regens your mana and your HP as well. So if you want to have a little bit more sustain, you could add a little bit of spirit runes here and there. But if you just want to go full damage, just add the intellect runes. Now for your chestplate, you could have a total of 6 rune slots. The main ones you want to have is the King Mandrake rune, the Rat rune, and the Mud Crab rune, and the rest could be intellect and spirits. For the pants, you could have 4 rune slots. The greater rune they want to have is Banshee, and then the rest could be intellect and spirit. For your staff, you could have 3 rune slots. The ones you want to fit in there is the Spider Queen rune, the Rat King rune, and the Black Ooze Slime rune. And then finally, for your offhand, the Magician's Sash, you could have 3 rune slots in it. You just want to put intellect or spirit runes. Now for the bags, you want to have the faction satchels. As a demon sect, they're called Infernal Satchels. For the lantern, you want to aim for the Sapphire Lantern. You could get it by crafting the item with Sapphire. And by the way, if you didn't know, you could get Sapphire by just mining silver ore at the Ashenshire area. Now, finally, for the rings. The rings that you want to get is the Malleus ring, which you could obtain through the Malleus questline where you turn in fairies at Ashenshire. You also want the faction ring, which you could buy at the faction shop. The caster's ring, which you could craft with Sapphire, similarly to that of the Sapphire Lantern. And then finally, the piercing magic band, which you could get by completing the Spider Mother questline. And that is basically it. Now, as always, if you have better builds or I'm missing something, leave a comment down below. And finally, let's test this build out against some bosses. And here we are. So just like in the previous video with my mage build, I'm gonna test this new build out on the Drogar and Lycanthar bosses. So I have my fiend here, I have the demonic sacrifice buff giving me 10% intellect scaling, I have the greater intelligence buff as well, I have the normal fairy 23.4% magic attack increase alongside with overload that I'm gonna use once I enter, and my rats that I'm gonna summon right now. So my fiend took a little damage while we're coming in, but it's fine. He could probably last longer than the boss itself. He's probably gonna take like less than 10 seconds because this build, even though that it's not maxed out with the rune slots on the chest plate and the wrong hat that I'm even using, I'm supposed to have the Malefic hat, losing me 2% mage crit, it's fine. I'm still gonna absolutely destroy the Drogar boss. So let's see how fast we could kill it. Let's summon our rats and we're gonna use overload. We're gonna go in the fight, spawn Drogar, and summon our Arcane Storm on top of him. Dodge the first attack, flame pillar, and just flamethrower. Look at his HP. No, bro did not last 10 seconds. Yo, compare that to last time, bro did not last as long. I think, like, he died so quickly. Yo, this build is diabolical. This build is diabolical when it comes to damage. My goodness, bro. We'll wait for our Plague Rats and then we'll try it on Lycanthar. We'll see if he dies even quicker. But remember, he has 2 stages, so I'm probably gonna wait out his iframes and then I'll use Arcane Storm when he enters the 2nd phase. Oh yeah, and I even forgot to use Mana Shield. I didn't even need it. I didn't even get hit once. We may need it here though, so let's hold down our Plague Rats and here we go. Pop overload, go talk to the Lycanthar boss, use Arcane Storm on top of him. Nice, we crit as well. Yeah, you see the crit? Insane crit. We got hit once though. This is posture disappear. I mean, I should have waited it out with my Arcane Storm, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I think I could just flamethrower him down. I'll just flamethrower him just like this. Yep, there goes your posture. There goes your posture. And my fiend is barely at half. And I'm gonna soul steal just for the funsies. Yeah, I mean, I didn't lose any HP. My magic shield still has a couple of hits before it disappears. And that wasn't even a clean run. I'm gonna do it again just to show you how much cleaner the run could get. All right, so let's summon our fiend. Let's use greater intelligence so we could get that 50 intelligence buff once more, and we'll summon our Plague Rats as well. There it is. And I'm not gonna start off with Arcane Storm. I'm just gonna go in, I'm gonna use Flame Pillar, and hopefully my fiend takes aggro here. Yep, there we go. Use Flamethrower to lower his posture. He gets posture broken, he enters 2nd phase. I'm gonna use overload, I'm gonna use Arcane Storm now, and I'm gonna critical him. There it is. Use Flame Pillar. Hopefully I still don't have aggro. Yeah, I still don't have aggro. Look at this. Look at the amount of damage. Oh, bro, he's dead. He's dead. Just like that. I don't know. This build is just super OP for PvE, and it might even be overpowered for PvP. I haven't tried. Nobody has tried me yet. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. Good luck trying to get this build, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.